ahead and get started just to make sure we have enough time for all of our speakers. For those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Bing, and I am the Vice President for Georgia ITE this year. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have our president's remarks. Christy, do you want to do your remarks? Okay. Barely made it. Okay, you can just push this arrow.
Okay, all right. So is this a mic?
Yeah, that's a mic, and then also sort of talk close to that.
Okay, all right. All right, hi everyone. Good to see you all. First of all, my name is Christy Johnny, if you don't know me. Welcome to our June monthly meeting. It's Young Member Spotlight, one of my favorites, so good to see you all. Let's see, I have just a quick recap and announcements. Our May meeting was great. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a joint meeting with ITS Georgia. I think it was one of the largest meetings we had. We had a great discussion on the World Cup prep. So thanks to those of you who made it. Let's see, and thanks Bean for all of the organization and the efforts. Let's see, we didn't do the summer seminar. It's Andrew, you gonna cover it later, or I can cover it?
Yeah, I didn't move it. It's right
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
You can say some things.
Yeah.
As you can see on the screen, Summer Seminar in the Roach is our keynote. Main thing, registration, early registration, deadline's coming up. I've reached out to a few in the room for technical committee. If there's any last input there, please reach out to me ASAP. Pretty far along in the process. Looking forward to another great time at King and Prince.
Awesome, thank you, Andrew, and thanks for all your time and effort. It's a lot of work to organize such a conference, so thank you, Andrew, for getting there. Lastly, this is just a heads up that we are building a Georgia ITE photo repository, and where we can store all of the photos and meeting informations, meetings and events. In addition to these monthly meetings, all the committee chairs do amazing jobs organizing and leading events. So we like the idea is just to have all of these in one place, and just a heads up that I will be working with subcommittee chairs to have a reason to do that, to just build that and maintain those. So you all committee chairs and subcommittee chairs do an amazing job, and I thank you to all of you and all of you who participate in our main events, all of you. So with that, I hope you enjoy your lunch and presentations, and look forward to young member presentation today. And thanks, Pete, with that.
Thanks, and then Bill has a couple announcements.
Hey everybody, my name is Bill. I'm the Secretary Treasurer for this year. This announcement went out last month, but I want to remind everyone, here's the microphone. I want to remind everyone that if you want to register for Summer Seminar as a member by next Friday, that's the deadline, you really need to make sure you get over to ite.org and make sure your membership is up to date. Now, this is the wrong audience for this announcement. You're all probably already up to date. However, I will say that you all probably have supervisors who may attend Summer Seminar and they never remember to update their membership. If they updated on 6/20, they won't make it by the early deadline. So I'm calling on everyone to remind people who go to Summer Seminar to check and make sure their membership. I will be much happier next week when I'm not making a bunch of revisions. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. So if you have any membership questions, that's the guy. Okay, so our next monthly meeting is going to be on August 14th. It's actually going to be in this location as well. And it's going to be our joint meeting with GPA, which is the Georgia Planning Association. And the topic is going to be the Atlanta Regional Freight Mobility Plan. And so the ARC is going to come and present. I just wanted to give a couple quick shout outs for the future monthly meetings. The dates haven't been set yet, but in September we have our annual monthly meeting with KSU. October, our monthly meeting is going to be a joint meeting with ASCE. And then November, we're going to have Traffic Bowl, and then December is going to be the annual meeting. So that's sort of what we have going on. Reminder, there's no monthly meeting in July because of Summer Seminar. Okay, engineering outreach. Andrew?
Thanks, Big. Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Lewis. I'm with the City of Atlanta Department of Transportation. I'm also the Engineering Outreach Committee Chair this year. Just if you're not familiar, we have an Engineering Outreach Committee whose focus is just really kind of building out the profession, helping to kind of recruit future transportation engineers, doing a lot focused on kind of the K-12 youth side of things. So we do have an event coming up in July. We're helping out with a summer camp by an organization called the Little Book Spot, but we'll just be kind of giving some presentations and running an activity for a bunch of middle schoolers. So if you are interested in that, or just kind of helping to plan or make events like that happen and being on our committee, you can reach out to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Sam, did you want to give an update?
All right, so just wanted to give a quick recap of STEAM Camp. Next month is the camp, so we're very excited about that. We're in the last stages of this, so we're very thankful to all our sponsorships, Google Cloud, Atkins Realis, Jacobs, Arcadis, AECOM, and Atlas. It's outstanding. That means that we had everything we needed in order to make the camp a huge success this year in terms of getting newer materials. One of the activities I'm really excited about is some of the kids on the older kid day will actually be building miniature traffic signals and actually doing the electronics behind that. So because of those sponsorships, we're able to do that, and we're also able to get t-shirts. Want to thank also all the volunteers for the event. That's extremely important. We had 33 people, or 33 spots filled. Doesn't mean it was 33 people because some people did more than one, but that means we probably had 28 people volunteer, which is absolutely outstanding. So I just want to thank everybody for that. Thank everybody for their if you're contributing to it in any way. And again, thanks to all our sponsors. So thank you.
Thanks, Sam. And sorry that AECOM's logo did not make it onto this slide, but I did want to give you guys a shout out. The leadership program.
Yeah, I'm here at Allen. We're also here to be for the program. We just wanted to do that.
Thanks, Jared. Is Sam here? Okay, I think Sam and Nate both couldn't make it. For our social and activities committee, their next event is going to be a pickleball meetup at Painted Pickle, and I know we have some avid pickleball players in the audience. If you guys are interested, just RSVP to Nate and Sam, and the address for Painted Pickle is right there as well. The Young Members Committee.
Hey, I'm Alyssa Shin, and Rahul, raise your hand. He's also here. We're the co-chairs for the Young Members Committee. This is a perfect plug for our committee as well. We meet once a month on Teams, and we're meeting tomorrow actually to hear from past President Sam Harris to walk through his career path and advice for young members. We have 2 upcoming events next Friday on Teams from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. as a kind of lunch and learn. We're hosting a webinar for summer interns to understand what questions you should be asking, how you can get the most out of your internship, and that will be hosted by George Curtis with Gwinnett County and Sarah Timmons with AgenTV. So please feel free to reach out to Rahul and I, and we can send along that registration and link to you. And then we're super excited this fall to be doing a joint kickball tournament for young members across various different engineering organizations. You can see that in a long list. So you probably have friends from college that might be in other organizations or people you've met along the way. That date is set for September 6th on Saturday, and you can reach out to Kayla over here.
Thank you. And then here's just a quick save the date for upcoming events. If you guys have any questions or need to contact anybody for them, just let us know. And next, we will have our meeting sponsor. Where's Chala? Oh, say a few words. There you go. And you can just push this arrow.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks Georgia IT for this sponsorship opportunity. it's great to be part of this young members spotlight meeting. So just briefly about Metro Traffic, most of you know the firm, but there might be there's a lot of young members new to the industry. Some of you may not know about us. We are a small traffic engineering firm based here in Metro Atlanta, and we provide services across the state. But we're also ready to be of service in some of mostly southeastern states and probably like in the Midwest as well. And maybe down the road, eventually, maybe we might even go further north to what some people call the 51st state. Stay tuned. So since it's a young member spotlight meeting, I would like to make a mini spotlight on some of our young members. Amanti, I think I've seen him earlier. Where is he? Okay, right there. So no question, he's a young member because most people actually think he's my son. He's my brother. I'm sometimes even tempted to claim him on my tax return, but So he's been with us, from the very beginning and involved in a lot of, different projects. And I think many of you, the young members, he's also a member of the young member committee. And then I'm happy to share that we have a new young member joining us as well next week. He could not be here today because he's actually moving into his new place. Gotham, some of you know him. He's been here in Atlanta market previously working on the SIGOPS program, but he moved to California working with a Econolite, testing different features for the last 5 years, transit signal priority, emergency vehicle preemption. So, and I'm excited, not only he's back with us, but also back to Georgia from California. So super excited and now look forward to, welcoming him and hopefully the young members committee. So he's another recruit for us. Excited about that. Some of the non-traditional traffic engineering works that we do, just to share, maybe might be exciting. Some of the emerging technologies. We do some work, for example, right there on the left, connected vehicle technologies deployment in Gwinnett County, working with many agencies. Savannah, we do transit signal priority under SIGOPS program as well. Right now, wrapping up the Cobb County TMC upgrade project with ACOM and also with the Atkinson BBH. We're working on the GDOT broadband project, very exciting. Last week, actually, I was on my way to Florida and I saw them, installing those conduits for the broadband project. So super exciting project as well. And also another project we're working on is the adaptive signal, the traffic signal control, and also some transportation data support, which will be upcoming with for GDOT with HNTV. And some of the traditional work, I know I've shared this slide before. This is one of my last one. The counties that you see with the green check is across the state are areas where we've completed the project so far. And pretty much every district in Georgia, all the 7 districts, we've done some work. And within Metro Atlanta, we've worked with all the counties. The small purple one you see up there is Rockdale County. So that's the only county we have not worked yet in the District 7. But everywhere else, we have. Maybe next year when I share, you probably will see more green checks. So we're excited about that. And we could not be able to do it without the partnership and opportunities. Working with many of you representing some of these firms in the room here. So, and then we've teamed with several other firms as well, and look forward to working with many of you. So thank you, Georgia IT, and for all the support.
Okay, so we have 5 young member speakers today, so I'll just introduce each of them before their presentation. So our first presenter is going to be Caitlin Schaefer. Okay, so Caitlin is a transportation planner and engineer. Planner and engineer, and serves as the Strategy and Mobility Planning Assistant Director for the Atlanta Department of Transportation. In her role, she supports a variety of transportation programs and projects with technical skills, thoughtful communication, and a good sense of humor. Prior to joining ATL-DOT, Caitlin attended Georgia Tech and worked for Kittleson and Associates in Baltimore, Maryland. She has the unique privilege of getting to walk to work in Atlanta and hopes to create a city where others can have a healthy, happy, and safe commute too. Welcome. Your slide should be here. You can just push this arrow to the right. Okay, great. Cool.
Can you all hear me? Hi, I'm Caitlin. Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. I only joined the city of Atlanta about 5 or 6 months ago, so I'm really excited to be back. But I wanted to present today a little bit about our Vision Zero program and how resurfacing and maintenance can be a method to progress Vision Zero within the city of Atlanta. Um, like I said, I recently moved back, so I was in Baltimore, Maryland, where I has been working for several years before I moved back to Atlanta, and I got to work on a big variety of things, just like a lot of my coworkers at the city. We do a lot of different things and all have kind of diverse paths that led us to working at the city of Atlanta. So some things I got to work on before I moved back were managing the shared micromobility program for the city of Baltimore. So scooters, e-bikes, as well as working on national research, both NCHRP projects and guidebooks for Federal Highway, and also learning a little bit about design through different bike facilities projects. But everything I've worked on has been focused on active transportation and safety. Which led me to joining the Office of Strategy and Mobility Planning within ATL-DOT. So this office, just wanted to share about some of the people that work on our team, but the Office of Strategy and Mobility Planning houses a lot of different programs, including Vision Zero, Atlanta Streets Alive, Safe Routes to School, Micromobility, and our Tactical Urbanism program, which is a community-led program to install different interventions within your community, whether they be fun painted crosswalks or things related to safe routes to school, including traffic cardons. But mostly today I wanted to talk about the Vision Zero program because though Vision Zero program is currently one person who manages it, it's a real effort for the whole city to participate in. So Vision Zero, if you're not familiar, is the strategy or initiative to completely eliminate traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries within the city of Atlanta by 2040. And that's a really tough job. There's currently a lot of dangerous roadways and situations that happen, and it's unrealistic to think that we'll ever have control over everything that happens on the roadways. We're taking steps towards making sure that even if something does happen or a crash occurs, people can walk away or eventually walk away from the situation. And one kind of subset of our Vision Zero program that includes lots of different things, infrastructure, resurfacing, education, and programming, is I wanted to talk today mostly about the resurfacing and how we incorporate safety improvements to marginally move the needle towards completing Vision Zero. So the overall process for how kind of safety improvements are identified within our project, it's a collaborative effort a lot of times between the Office of Strategy and Planning, Office of Engineering, and Office of Capital Delivery within ATL-DOT, but it also includes partners like the Georgia Department of Transportation, or we've also worked a lot with MARTA through our their Safe Routes to Transit project to kind of use smaller scale interventions to make specific bus stops safer. But one of the things I really wanted to highlight was when we kick off looking at safety improvements, I think one of the most important things is understanding what planned projects or overlapping projects intersect with the project you're working on. So even if you're working on just signal timing for one intersection or just designing a curb ramp for one specific spot, I think it's really important to recognize that we don't operate in a vacuum. Every project influences another project and eventually influences the system that we all operate in. So if you haven't already, any of these plans along the bottom of the screen, if you can at some time or point, if you're working in the city of Atlanta, just take a look and understand kind of where the bicycle network is going or where some of these larger projects are. And then most of you are probably familiar with reviewing crash data and then identifying safety improvements that specifically address a certain crash type or trend that's occurring on the corridor. We then work within our team to propose improvements to address those identified safety issues, and also work to analyze, either doing traffic analysis, signal timing, or other things to ensure that the proposed improvements will work. So I just wanted to share one example of an upcoming project. This project hasn't kicked off yet. It's actually a Moving Atlanta Forward resurfacing and safety improvements project, but it's North Highland Avenue, which is through the Virginia Highland neighborhood. A lot of you are probably familiar if you live within the city of Atlanta. It's already a beautiful corridor. It existing and has a lot of businesses as well as somewhat adjacent to the Atlanta Beltline. And it's a really busy corridor, not just for vehicles, but people biking, walking, within the community. So going back to thinking about what's already been planned, a lot of things have already been planned for North Highland. It's a Cycle Atlanta corridor, an Atlanta Transportation Plan corridor, as well as communities have completed their own neighborhood action plans or community plans that include improvements. And I think it's really important not only understanding the broader system of what's planned, but also when you go to a community, being able to say, we already heard this from you. Like, thank you for sharing. We heard this concern previously, and you can kind of leverage that to help people better understand and reconfirm what we've already know. In addition to having lots of plans for the corridor, there's also overlapping projects, and this is just an example of one corridor, but all corridors within the city have kind of the same amount of plans or overlap, and why it's important to reflect back on the work that's already been done. Also looking at the crash data, crashes can be really overwhelming as they occur in lots of different places, but when you look at the serious injuries and fatalities that have occurred on the corridor, you can start to see clusters and patterns of what's happened. Unfortunately, there was a fatality somewhat recently in the past year on this corridor, but through the resurfacing projects, we're able to work to incorporate recommendations to prevent a future fatality. So every fatality that happens within the city is reviewed by the Fatal Crash Review Commission. So that's a commission made up of different partners within the city, and others, including the Atlanta Police Department, to create short-term and long-term recommendations for how to amend this. And we have a record of all of these for every crash that occurs, and we complete them ongoing. So whenever there's an opportunity, whether it be through a capital project or resurfacing, we're working to add in these recommendations, whether they be the short-term or long-term recommendations. Just a brief overview of like what type of safety improvements might be able to work within a resurfacing project. It can be bump outs, whether they're painted or concrete, daylighting, so giving a little bit of a buffer between your crosswalk, refuge islands to shorten crossing distance, centerline hardening to better control your turns and keep vehicles with their lanes, safe crossing improvements, and then probably one of the most common, which is lane reconfigurations or road diets. So reconfiguring how the existing striping is, and that resurfacing can kind of be thought of as like a blank canvas for how you want to recreate your roads. So whether it's implementing bicycle infrastructure, or even if you're just reconfiguring lanes so they're clearer and safer for vehicles. And a lot of times we get asked, like, how does the cost of improvements compare to the cost of the existing? And it is expensive to implement safety improvements. Things cost a lot, and the cost of construction is increasing, but a lot of the cost of maintaining the existing is people continuing to get hurt or die on our roadways. And that cost goes to the community. Like, the city never writes a check for this cost. No one ever writes a check, but really the burden continues to be on communities that are impacted by serious injuries and fatalities. So just some takeaways from my time here today. There's lots of opportunities to incorporate low cost and impact improvements, whether it's through resurfacing or being creative within whatever type of projects you are working on. And there are so many different ways to achieving Vision Zero. It's not just resurfacing or doing these big capital projects to move the needle. It's little things like education and programming as well. So thank you for having me speak. Atlanta Streets Alive is upcoming and it crosses actually Peachtree Street, which is in front of this office. So if you want to come ride your bike or walk down the street, come see us.
I think we can do one question if anybody has a question.
That's
Okay, no question. Oh, we did have one question.
I think I heard the question correctly, but when you're looking at the sidewalk projects, there's not as many in Southwest Atlanta. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's a great observation. There's definitely a geographic and equity component to our work of how projects are identified. A lot of the projects that you'll see on the website are mapped or Moving Atlanta Forward projects, which were previously funded through the sales tax as well as bonds. So those have been predetermined for a while. And as we are moving into this next phase of projects and completing the Moving Atlanta Forward project, we're also about to kick off our comprehensive transportation plan, which is a completely new plan for the city of Atlanta and will include a lot of new projects and corridors. And one of the main components of this plan is making sure that things are equitably and geographically spread out. So I don't have an exact answer for why those projects are, but hopefully there'll be lots of new projects in the future.
Thanks, Caitlin, great job. Okay, our second speaker is William Morgan. William Morgan grew up in West Lafayette, Indiana, and received his Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2021 from Purdue University. He continued his education and received his Master's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2023 from Georgia Tech. After that, he got a job at the Georgia Department of Transportation in the Intelligent Transportation Systems Group, which mostly focuses on devices for freeway operations. William began primarily working on ramp meters until August 2024, and now he spends about half of his day working on the ramp meters. Here you go.
Thank you.
You can just push this arrow to advance.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Thanks for the introduction. I guess the more interesting part of my job, I think, is the ramp meters. So I thought I'd give a brief informational presentation on ramp metering in Georgia, what it is, and how it works. So we currently have 235 ramp meters. They're mostly in Metro Atlanta, though we have a few in Columbus. The map on the right, each yellow dot is one of our ramp meter sites. They mostly consist of single or double lane meters, though we have a few 3-lane meters, and we have one 4-lane meter, which is a pretty prominent location at Freedom Parkway northbound onto the connector. We currently have no freeway-to-freeway meters. We have one at State Route 141 southbound heading onto 285 westbound, but that one's currently disabled. We have mostly avoided installing meters on collector and distributor ramps, though we have one relatively recently installed metered entrance to the reversible toll lanes at Acres Mill. Next, I want to go over the components at each site. So the cabinet is really what controls the meter. It is a Caltrans inspired 334 cabinet. Then we have the signals for your single lane meters. You'll typically see just on a pole, you'll have two signal heads. One is for people approaching the meter and one is for people on the stop bar, the smaller, lower one. And then for multi-lane meters, we prefer having a mast arm. Then there's the advanced warning signs. That's just to let drivers entering the ramp know to prepare to stop. It consists of a yellow diamond sign saying ramp meter when flashing and a flashing beacon up top. Then we have mainline detection that feeds the flow state of the freeway into the controller to let the controller make decisions on when to meter and how hard to meter. Then we have our ramp detection, which consists of passage detectors, demand detectors, and excessive and intermediate queue loops. The passage is not doing too much. It is after the stop bar and it is there to terminate the green when the car clears the stop bar. The demand is there to let the signal know that someone's waiting for a green. And then the queue, we mostly have excessive queue loops. Those are at the back of the ramp. If it senses cars sitting on it, it will begin to raise the meter rate until it's been about a minute, and then it will clear out that ramp. At some newer locations, we have intermediate queue detectors, which are about halfway up the ramp, and that is to begin bumping the meter rate up sooner to make it clear out the ramp less often. Finally, we have our ramp meter specific signage that you don't see on an unmetered ramp, which includes the stop here on red and 1 car per green. That is to help drivers know how to use the meter. And the software that we currently use to run the meters is Q-Free MaxTime MaxView, and there's a quick screenshot. Then I'll go over operating these things. The goal is to reduce congestion overall, and that is accomplished by increasing throughput on the freeway, and that should decrease the number of net diversions onto the arterial system. And so what's important in that goal is that we don't want to cause gridlock on the signalized roads, which is why we don't want the ramp to back up into the upstream intersection, because if we start blocking movements, then that can cause cascading negative effects. Our meters are local traffic responsive, so we set the metering rates by time of day and looking at the speeds and occupancy on the freeway. And we evaluate performance ideally using the count stations provided by Tata. Those are really good because throughput is the main goal. Though if we don't have a count station there, we also use speeds from RIDIS to kind of, it'll show some improvement, but it's not quite as crisp as the counts. Maintenance, this is probably the biggest headache in my life. So a lot of it is active monitoring where I'm just on Google Maps looking at the ramps, looking for issues. There is definitely potential for automation there, where we could probably program some stuff in MaxTime to throw us some flags when anomalies occur. Another thing is the 208 monitor, which is like a conflict monitor, but it doesn't look for conflicts because there are no conflicts at a ramp meter. So it's just looking for two things. It has a watchdog timer and it's looking for drops in voltage. And so the reason that this is a little troublesome is that when it trips, instead of putting the meter into flash or holding green or some other indication, it just shuts off power to the signal heads. And so we pretty much, unless it's a high profile location, we only know that it has tripped when we do a manual check, which we do about every 3 to 4 months. Finally, resurfacing projects. These used to be an issue, but it's gotten much better now. The important thing is inter-office coordination. They tell us, oh, we're about to repave these ramps. I show them where the loops are and they replace them for us. Now I kind of want to go over, after I've shown what it is, kind of how it works. So the main causes of freeway congestion are incidents, accidents, queues of exiting vehicles that spill backwards onto the freeway, bottlenecks, and flow disrupted by platoon entering vehicles, which generate shock waves on the main line. And ramp meters can help mitigate the latter two causes. So the way that that works is, firstly, by reducing the volume of entering vehicles at bottlenecks where demand exceeds the downstream service rate, it can kind of keep the flow rate at that segment as high as possible. And then secondly, by chopping up platoons, spaces created between vehicles to smooth out the merging process, thereby lowering the density of vehicles at the merge point. And how that helps is that, firstly, it delays bottleneck formation by reducing the number of shockwaves and reducing the severity of those shockwaves. Then it increases throughput when the bottleneck is active, also due to the whole shockwave thing. And finally, it speeds up the recovery of flow after peak periods for the same reason. But I think one important thing for practitioners to keep in mind is that you need to be aware that there is such a thing as too low of a metering rate. And that's because you may starve the bottleneck, where the downstream segment is not pushing through as many vehicles as possible. And then secondly, you might redirect trips to enter the freeway at less desirable locations with larger negative impacts on overall throughput. So the proof is that I have had one pretty significant increase in throughput. So in the downtown connector northbound, in July of 2024, the Spring, Linden, Ivan Allen, Williams ramp meter was disabled. In August 2024, I enabled it, and there was quite a spike in throughput. On that graph on the right, you can see that at least in August, the main gains were in the morning during the evening rush. Now, a lot of people might say, well, I just shock the system and then it'll re-equilibrate and then all those gains are lost. But at least as of last month, or 2 months ago, I guess, when I last pulled the data in April, there have been sustained improvements. Unfortunately, the evening rush did re-equilibrate and it's as bad as it used to be. But the morning rush is still pushing a lot more vehicles than it used to. And so to put numbers to that, in August, we saw a 6.5% improvement in overall throughput and an 11.2% improvement in the peak hour, which was 7 a.m. And as of April, we still have a 5.4% increase in overall and a 10% increase at that 7 a.m. hour. So I'm sure anyone driving through there doesn't feel that way. So next, I kind of want to quickly discuss how location kind of has to do with what the ramp meters do. And so that dark blue there, that is the bottleneck in the morning at the connector northbound. That's Freedom Parkway. And so it's doing everything that I said before. It's trying to delay the bottleneck formation. It's trying to keep more cars moving through there when the bottleneck is active. And after the evening rush, it's trying to make it recover quicker. And at least in the morning, we do have a post-bottleneck meter, which is the Spring Street one, that's light blue. All it's doing is the mainline detector is looking for shockwaves. And the moment it detects a shockwave, it's going to turn on. It's going to start chopping up the platoons. And the flow will recover. And once that happens, it turns back off. And then we have our orange ones. Those are the ones behind the bottleneck. Those are really performing what's called restrictive ramp metering. And those are just trying to get less people to enter the queue to kind of cut in front of people who are coming from farther out. And essentially to try to just shorten the overall length of that queue. So restrictive ramp metering, it can work, but you need to be very careful with it. It is when the metering is set below the non-meter RAM volume. It should only be done post-breakdown of mainline flow. It's done to shift freeway arrivals to a more desirable access point from a system perspective. To properly pull this off, you need adequate RAM storage, which at some locations we just don't have. And the guidance is 5 to 10% of peak hour volume at least. And anyone implementing this type of thing needs to follow up on equilibrium effects 1 week to a month afterwards to try to figure out, great, you've lowered the number of entries at this location, but where are they getting on now? lastly, I want to kind of do a looking forward. So one big area for improvement is getting more accurate and precise mainline detection. And this has the potential to unlock better performance through better selection of meter rates. Because currently our mainline detection, it can tell us like when it's broken down or not broken down. It's like an on-off switch. But in terms of calculating the amount of available space on that downstream segment, it's not quite there yet. And then there's system algorithmic control, which some states use, like Minnesota. It has the potential for greater automation and greater performance. And it can take into account uncontrolled access points, which is kind of a limitation of our current system. And finally, freeway to freeway rate metering. Other states have shown that it can work, but you need to be very careful about your site selection. And so it should only be used where route diversion should be encouraged. Here's some resources I used for the slides. And thank you. And any complaints about a ramp meter, send an email to wmorgan@dot.ga.gov, and I will take a look.
William, we're gonna do one question, as long as it's a question and it's not a complaint. Oh, we have 2 questions. Oh, wow, a lot of questions. William, which one do you can pick one. Okay, I'll pick one question. I think you were first.
So the freeway to freeway, really, if we were to choose a location, William, where do you think the best option probably would be to try that? That's like,
So I haven't done an in-depth study, but if you wanted like an inkling of where I think it's most useful would be Stone Mountain Freeway eastbound, 285 southbound. Volumes are not too high there, and it is the front of the bottleneck.
Great, thank you, William, great job. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Jonathan Beaver. Jonathan Beaver is an Atlanta native working for Kimley Horn here in our Atlanta Midtown office as a traffic and transportation engineer. He graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree in environmental engineering and found his way into transportation after first working 2 years as a stormwater engineer. Good job.
Thank you, Bing. Good afternoon, everybody. As Bing mentioned, I'm Jonathan Beaver. I work here at Kimley Horn in our Midtown office in this building as a traffic and transportation engineer. I'm excited to share with you all a little bit about who I am and what I get the privilege of working on day in and day out. So quickly, just about me, I am an Atlanta area native. I grew up in Tucker, Georgia, which is up 85 a bit. This is my lovely Tucker Tiger mascot. After high school, I attended Georgia Tech here in Midtown and studied environmental engineering. I graduated in December of 2020 and then joined Kimley Horn full-time May of 2021. Outside of work, I love anything active, so hiking, biking, running. I do try to get out and play sand volleyball as often as I can, typically like once a week in these fair weather months. I've got some good groups that just like to play the pickup. Also love travel. One of the more significant travel adventures I had was a post-grad trip where I did 27 national parks in 64 days with a friend from school. And that picture in the top left is of the Grand Canyon portion of that trip where my dad and one of my uncles actually joined us. I also am a bit of a coffee guy. I would not consider myself a snob necessarily, but I do have opinions. And my method in the mornings is a V60 pour over. So for anybody in the game, respect. Some background on my career. I've only ever been with Kimley Horn. I interned with Kimley Horn 3 times in school in 2018, 2019, and 2020 in different offices and on different teams throughout the 3 summers. And then took some time off after graduating and came on, like I mentioned, in May of 2021 full-time on our surface water team, which is like stormwater design, stormwater management. Some of the types of work I did with the stormwater management team was roadway MS4 projects, bridge hydraulics, solar hydrology, stormwater BMP design, stuff along those lines. Did that for 2 years, and then at about 2 years in, I identified an opportunity to make a little bit of an internal shift to our team that does traffic operations and transportation planning. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years. And then a recent career update is just last month, I officially became a PE in Georgia. So fun little next step. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is just highlight some of the projects that I get a chance to be involved in, starting with the SIGOP Southwest contract. So a lot of the team here in Midtown through the SIGOPS program has the role of being involved with the proactive signal management in districts 3 and 4 in the southwest part of the state. And what that looks like is kind of every type of work from full corridor retimings, like what you see in the middle, that is SR 34 in Coweta County, which I got a chance to be involved with the full retiming of about a year ago now. But also stuff like incident management, and then the proactive part of it is trying to determine areas that might need signal timing help before they become a problem. The nature of this work is a lot of field time, field implementations, and the like. And on the right here is me and Luke Sanders having a great time in the diverging diamond interchange along SR 2081 in Henry County. So SIGOP Southwest has been a consistent part of my workload for the past 2 years. The next two things I'd like to highlight are more recently biased, so kind of more what I've been spending my time on in the last like 6 months or so. If you got the chance to attend last month's joint ITS Georgia and Georgia ITE monthly meeting, you saw the panel on the World Cup prep, little thing called the World Cup coming in about a year's time. Referenced in that panel was Chief Grucci from the Georgia World Congress Center mentioned this like idea of this downtown events plan kind of thing that he like walked into and stumbled across and then decided, let's implement this. Some firm called Kimley Horn did this. Let's see if it makes a difference. So that is what we refer to as the downtown special events playbook, which was developed and implemented by Kimley Horn in 2017. So it's been in place now for about 8 years. And as mentioned on that panel 2 weeks ago, it's led to great improvements in our downtown special events operations, particularly in the areas of egress. So getting people and vehicles cleared out of the area post-event in a much more efficient manner than it was previously. But as I mentioned, that's 2017. So our downtown area has developed a lot, is actively developing, and will continue to develop a lot. So there's been a call for a need to update this playbook. And through actually also the SIGOPS program, but the Metro Central contract, Kimley Horn has been asked to take on that update task. So what that's going to look like is ideally just thinking through what have the developments been and what might they continue to be, and where are needs within the existing framework of the playbook that we can kind of bring in to make it adapt to the current day. Also, a goal of it is to better define roles and responsibilities of stakeholders involved in the event management arena. Sorry, arena is confusing because State Farm Arena, but sphere of events. So even just last week, I was a part of a stakeholder engagement meeting with a few folks in this room, but also many folks in parts of these organizations and others at the Georgia World Congress Center, just brainstorming through collectively what are challenges that downtown is facing currently, what are things that we really want to make sure that we include in this update, and then what are things that we, Kimley Horn, have identified as kind of priority topics. Another aspect of this downtown special events playbook update, in order to update anything, you have to know where you currently stand. So through the months of March and April, myself and a team of Kimley Horn employees were able to go and observe 4 different events, both at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and State Farm Arena, both sporting events and more concert-focused events, concluding with the Kendrick Lamar SZA concert end of April. But what those observations looked like were we were out for hours of ingress and egress, looking at what are current staffing, officer staffing operations, what are current prohibited movements around the downtown area, because we have a plan that we know about that was done in 2017, but realistically things have changed a little bit and maybe that plan has been strayed from. So we wanted to kind of reorient to what is currently happening out there during events. So these are some pictures from those observation days. One of the days we got a chance to actually go into Mercedes-Benz and watch a few minutes of the Atlanta United game. On the far right, I was sniped on one of our CCTV cameras by another colleague doing traffic operations. for the event. And then just generally trying to get an idea for what's currently happening, where are officers, where are postings, how are things going, and identifying challenges. So kind of pinch points, bottlenecks, where are things that need to make their way into this update. I did mention this was referenced in that panel on World Cup preparations, but to be clear, this is not World Cup. This is about everything happening between now and World Cup and things that will happen long after World Cup comes through. The reality is FIFA's processes are going to largely dictate World Cup operations, though I imagine a lot of these things that come in the playbook will kind of cross over into those operations as well. And that brings me to my final project highlight, which actually is FIFA World Cup oriented, and it's the FIFA World Cup Mobility Plan. So as I hope you all know, like I mentioned earlier, Atlanta has been selected as one of the host cities for FIFA World Cup 2026 next summer. We'll be hosting 8 matches here in the city, as well as FanFest, so an ongoing place for fans to come enjoy the festivities. And that will be in Centennial Olympic Park. But every host city has a host committee, and the requirement of FIFA for each host committee is to formulate what's called a mobility plan. It's basically just outlines the infrastructure and the operational capacity of our city to move constituents through the city throughout the month of the tournament. Whether that's fans coming to and from matches and FanFest, or FIFA VIPs coming from their hotels to matches, or the teams that are actually being hosted here, getting from their lodging to their practice facilities, and to their matches, and to the airport, because not all their matches will be here in Atlanta. So FIFA just wants to have a good idea that the city has stuff in place to make this tournament work really well. It's a huge document. It's got a lot of requirements. There's tons of hands in it. Lots of cross coordination through organizations around the city. Some roles that I've had in developing this mobility plan are related to like last mile routing. So how will people get from that last mile into either the stadium or FanFest? Some police escort routing coordination. So for teams and constituents that do require more focused police escorting in. And then just generally a lot of coordination and background research on what is our current infrastructure and what are details about some of the things that FIFA needs to know about. So that's keeping it pretty high level, but it's been really cool to be a part of this, both this in conjunction with the Downtown Special Events Playbook. Growing up here, I've been going to events downtown my whole life, and it's pretty cool to kind of be behind the scenes of trying to make sure that those events are operating well and that they continue to be a big part of like this city's DNA, and something that people get really excited about, both locally and coming from everywhere else. So that's really all I've got to highlight. I appreciate y'all taking time to listen. This is my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect, but otherwise I will hear my one allotted question. Thanks.
One question.
All
Okay.
right, thanks y'all.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Sarah Kenny. Sarah is a dedicated traffic engineering professional with 2 years of experience in the civil engineering industry. She graduated with her BS in civil engineering from Georgia Tech in 2023 and passed her FE exam last year. In her role as a traffic engineer at HNTB, she primarily contributes to their traffic forecasting contract with GDOT and helping advance various transportation projects for GDOT, ACLDOT, and TDOT. Beyond her technical expertise, Sarah is passionate about inspiring the next generation of engineers, sustainability, and giving back to her community. When not working, she enjoys hot yoga, tennis, crochet, hiking with her dog, and volunteering with a local women's resource center as part of their children's program.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Sarah Kenny. For those of you who don't know me, I want to thank Georgia IT for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm currently a traffic engineer at HNTB, and I'm going to start off just talking a little bit about my career and myself, and then get into noise analysis a little bit. So, a little about me. sorry. I'm from Warner Robins, Georgia, and I also grew up in a few other places because my dad was in the Air Force. So I moved around quite a bit. And part of the Air Force experience sparked my interest in engineering initially. While I wanted to learn how planes worked, I also was interested in the infrastructure that allowed such industries to exist. And that sparked my initial interest in civil. And then I went to Georgia Tech in 2019. My path was a little untraditional because my freshman year we got kicked off campus due to COVID. So I still ended up graduating in 2023 with my bachelor's in civil engineering. And part of my internships were all in land development because through school I thought that's what I wanted to do. So here you can see a picture of one of the cemeteries, which was my first project I actually took ownership on in my internship. We did a lot of work like that with unique circumstances, and also ocean outfalls in Myrtle Beach, Panama City Beach, and also redesigned the entire Myrtle Beach downtown to become an arts district. And so I decided once I graduated, I still wanted to do land development, but I went into the private industrial route instead. So I worked at Prime Engineering in Atlanta right after graduation, and we did a lot of fuel farms, Amazon warehouses, UPS distribution centers at airports. And while I found that all very enjoyable and interesting, I wasn't quite passionate about the work that I was doing. And so that's what segued me into becoming a traffic engineer, because it combined the love of planning that I had along with the love of design and math that I had. And so one of the main things I work on is traffic forecasting. So that's pretty much using past data and trends and current data and models to then plan for any kind of project that we are doing. And then along with that, I also work on forecasting reviews as part of our contract, and that's allowed me an opportunity to view things through a different lens than I may have otherwise, and has helped improve my own work in traffic forecasts. I've also had a bit of experience in signing and marking, primarily with my roadway group in our company, and I've done a lot of roundabouts, bike lanes, that sort of thing. And more recently, I've gotten into noise analysis, which is assessing the noise pollution from vehicles, and then using models to determine possible mitigation strategies for that. So to share a little bit about traffic forecasting, we're primarily in GDOT districts 1, 2, 4, and 5. And I highlighted a few of the projects that I've had the opportunity to work on so far in my career. One of the very first projects I worked on was a roundabout in Madison County. It was a very rural area and was just redesigning an intersection, but it provided me a good fundamental basis of what traffic forecasting entailed. And we work on a lot of different projects like bypasses, widenings, pedestrian projects, grade separations. Pretty much any project requires a traffic forecast. And then I did want to talk about noise analysis a bit because that's what I've been doing the past couple weeks going out in the field. So here's a picture from SR 400. We took sound level meters, and this is a reference photo of where we're taking sound levels at a location right off the highway without a noise barrier. And then we compare that to measurements from behind noise barriers at different receptor points, such as houses or apartments. So to go a little bit into noise and what that entails, these are some of the main factors that contribute to noise from roadways. So vehicle speed is one of the primary sources. You can see in the chart the tire noise. That's attributed to vehicle speed because the friction of the tire with the pavement creates the bulk of the noise that you do hear from roadways. Traffic volumes obviously also important because the more cars you have, the more volume you will have. And truck percentage also plays a key factor in considering mitigation strategies due to the fact that a truck is equal to about 28 cars of noise. So this is a key definition to know is worst noise hour, and this is the hour within a day in which the highest magnitude hourly equivalent sound level occurs. And contrary to what you may think, this isn't necessarily the peak hour of the roadway itself. You want to strike that balance between vehicle speed and vehicle volume to have the max noise. So this is typically a time in between AM and PM peak hours. And then once you know that, you can go take measurements. And part of what you're taking measurements for is the noise abatement criteria that's done by the FHWA. And this varies by land usage from residential to industrial, and it's different bars that you're trying to reach below for the decibel level of a roadway construction. And then an important definition is impacted receptor. So a receptor is whatever is receiving the noise. It can be a house, it can be a school, a church, whatever it is. And you will put those into models and then determine how much noise they are receiving. So we want to look and see if an impacted receptor is there. So what makes a receptor impacted is the future billed noise levels are within 1 decibel of or exceed those applicable NACs that I mentioned earlier, or the future billed noise level will exceed the existing noise levels by 15 decibels or more. And then one thing that people do to mitigate traffic noise is noise barriers. This is the primary one used, and they differ in material based on the state. A lot of states up north use timber, while down south we may use concrete or metal. And you can also use natural man-made ones using berms, and use the soil that you would otherwise try to dispose of during land development to create a natural barrier. And just by adding in that barrier and blocking the line of sight between the roadway and the receptor, you get about a 5 decibel reduction. And this is important because one of the first things you look at to determine if you need to put in a noise barrier is if it's even feasible. So one thing you look at is the noise reduction of at least 5 decibels for one of the impacted receptors. And again, that can be achieved just by putting in a barrier. But then you also need to look at if it's even possible with the topography to construct said barrier. And also you need to look at if it can be built given the location of the receptor to the roadway. So if it's on a hill, you put in a barrier, it's not going to do anything. And then once you can determine it's feasible to even build those barriers, you want to look at if it's reasonable. And there's a few requirements for this, and some of them differ by state. But in Georgia, you have to look at first if it's cost effective, and each state's cost effective parameter is different. I believe it's about $50 per square foot. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's the cost per benefited receptors. So that means they have a decrease in noise from the barrier being built. And you find this all out through the traffic noise model that the FHWA creates. And once you input all your measurements and volumes and everything, you can determine those reductions. So another thing is the noise reduction design goal. And this is a 7 decibel reduction for 1 or more benefited receptors. And if you don't have that, then it's not reasonable to build a barrier and they just won't put one in. So then another one is also community opinion is really important. There's a community outreach component of most GDOT projects. And they will go and talk to the communities because some may not like the aesthetics of a wall and would rather have the noise. So you have to look at if the community even wants the noise barrier. And then I also wanted to go in a little bit into my experience with ITE and other organizations. I've been trying to get more involved in ITE lately, and I'm a part of the Young Member Committee. One of the things I really enjoyed doing with that is the Kennesaw State Coffee Chats, where we went to Kennesaw and just sat with the students there and had conversations about the civil industry as a whole and school or whatever they wanted to talk about, and provide them advice and opinions. And I also want to plug again the ITE internship webinar as part of the Young Member Committee. So that will be June 20th, and we're going to be talking about how to get the most out of your internship. So if you have any interns that you think might be interested, I highly encourage you to sign up. And then also, as we spoke about earlier, there is an engineering outreach committee for ITE. One of my passions is inspiring the next generation of engineers because people did that for me, and that's why I'm here today. So one of the things I did was part of Science Atlanta. If you know, they have the Giant Science Festival every year. They have an Imagining the Future Day. And for that, I got to go speak to a few elementary school classes in Dunwoody and just introduce them to what civil engineering is and answer any questions they may have about traffic or engineering in general. And going along with that, I did participate in the Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day, which also inspires the next generation of girls to become in STEM, and we built bridges out of straws and just taught them basic principles of engineering. And WTS is a more recent one I've joined, but I've become a part of the Transportation Youth Society, and there we mentor young girls in high school, and you teach them about transportation engineering, but also just basic life skills like goal creation. And with all of that, I feel like it's important to go and encourage the next generation of engineers because we always need more. And internally at my company, I also work in the Social Responsibility Committee. And for that, we do a lot of donation drives and that sort of thing. And then the intern ambassador committee, where I get paired with an intern at our company. And with that, I become a resource for them and just get to know them and encourage them throughout their internship. And then another one I'm involved in is the mentoring committee. I got paired with a wonderful mentor who's taught me a lot about just career development and growing into yourself as you progress in your career. And with that, I just want to thank you all for having me. And if you have any questions, and this is also my digital business card if you want to connect. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Sarah? Okay. Okay, we have one last presenter. Trang May received her Master's of Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Iowa in 2018. She joined Atkins Realis in 2024 to support the GDOT Resilience Contract, helping the department improve our infrastructure's resilience in the face of extreme weather events and climate change. Prior to joining Atkins Realis, Trang spent 4.5 years at GDOT as a research project manager in the Office of Performance-Based Management and Research and as a planner in the Office of Planning. In 2 years following that in the private sector at WSP in 2022. Trang's hobbies include backpacking, hiking, trail maintenance, and gardening. Welcome. Just push this arrow. I can just push this arrow. Yes.
Hello, everyone. If I look nervous, it's because I'm nervous. Fun fact, all of those presentations that you just watched is way more glamorous. What do I was running deadlines. Not that it's an excuse, but I was running deadline and I forgot. So 2 nights ago, I was doing some GIS and I thought, let's put something on the map. And I totally forgot to include information about myself. So you had to pull up with me. So if it sounded like a last-minute effort, it was a last-minute effort, but I'm going to make it fun for you to the extent that I can. And usually I succeed. So if you fail to receive my humor, it's on you. A little bit more about myself, and I can see that Jonathan and I use the same design idea in PowerPoint. I flipped through about 50 ideas until I came to this. I did some investment, you know. I had about 8 years of experience, graduating in 2018 from the Urban and Regional Planning at University of Iowa. And I'm proud to be the only non-Georgia Tech speaker today. Coming to Georgia, I was overwhelmed. Everywhere you throw a stone and you hit about 10 Georgia Tech grads, including my boss over there, which is Christy. You know, so I'm that light that our minority community is striving to have, representation, something like that. So far, I have worked mostly in highway and transit. I haven't had the chance with active transportation. However, I did take a bus and the train and walk to the bus stop like every time I go to the ITE. So, and I don't do that planning, I participate. I mostly specialize in GIS, data analytics, grant narrative, cost benefit analysis, and basically anything under the sun that the client asks, and they ask a lot. So I do a lot. I am interested in more of the, you know, the project management and project development side, because I realize a lot of times when you do a thing, especially technical things, there is a high likelihood that you will be pigeonholed in those roles and those roles. You know, people assume that you do analysis, and that's what you know. And especially in the private sector, you know, things are specialized. You as a technician, you will be in those specialized technicality positions. But I want to have a bigger vision for my project. I want to see where it goes. I want to see the methodology or different methodology that is implemented. I want to talk to people of different disciplines, non-speaker nature, and create a vision as far as the approach to that project. As an example, in the wow, I'm getting really serious. We are currently doing a resilience improvement plan, and it sounds typical because it's a plan, but we want to do something different. You know, we want to prove the value of being in a bigger company where we can afford people from so many areas. We talk about water resource engineering, we talk about highway planning, we're talking about traditional planning, traffic, anything and stuff. So that's the point in hiring such a company, right? As opposed to a smaller company. And when I came in, I talked to different team members and tried to connect with the expertise as well as related to my past experience. I used to be a graduate research assistant in school, so I did some gas modeling in PCB. It is a mouthful, and I'm not good at remembering that, but it's an organic pollutant that was in paint, which was the EPA regulated industry in 1970. So it was pollutant, and it is associated with a lot of we call it superfund type. The kind of pollution that costs so much, we have only the big government can do it. And it's people. The point being, because of doing so, I found a little bit of gas modeling and see how, the water modeling works. How we can manage flow. And that background allows me to connect with what we here training. And I thought, it's not really good. We don't need to talk to our kinds of stuff. And we got a great hit. I'm just putting it out there. Didn't go. I reckon it is important to mention that in a young member plan panel or discussion, I have to talk about the struggle to finally find somewhere that I consider good and I can belong to. I turned to graduate school in 2016, completed in 2018. And that was after I already had a career, right? I graduated college in 2010, late 2010, December. I've been jumping around doing a lot of stuff. Initially, it was a life experience because I came from a small village, first generation college. So anyway, I just wanted to do a lot of things, experience a lot of life. So after graduating in college, I took my used to call it motorbike, but sometimes in music you call it a scooter, which is really a downgraded version. So I was traveling across Vietnam and working in Red Cross projects where our team provided disaster relief for victims in, say, northern and then central and the Mekong Delta. But that was a lot of instability and hunger. You don't have enough money to buy food. So I enjoy it, but in 2015 I decided it was about time to make a change. At least with our master's degree in this day and age, you know how hard it is to get a job. Now, don't you nod at me because you have an engineering degree and it's way easier. I'm just saying, no, I know it's hard. Yeah. So, looking exotic, I came from an exotic place, Vietnam. That was about 36-hour flight where they lost my luggage at Doha. So I was in Iowa with a tank top and it was pretty cold. I was in a great house. So I landed in Chicago here and recognized that I didn't have anything except a backpack. I brought with me $3,000. Why? Because I slept so easily at that time. I wish I could do so these days. So I put it in my shoes and I don't lose it. So I walked to the Greyhound station, and the first thing that struck me was how friendly people were. I was talking to a truck driver. He was an immigrant, and suddenly I felt like belonging for the first time in my life. That was my impression of the U.S. I like that we are a country of immigrants. I am now a citizen. Mostly for the sake of convenience, because let me tell you, if you have to renew your driver's license 5 times a year, that costs, which really not a fan of. So, I'm sorry, it's not changing again. So anyway, I got on that Greyhound bus and the driver was so hot. He was, I'm sorry, God, I'm sweating. Like, I get it. So yeah, I already told you about what I do here in America as a translation planner. Let me tell you a little bit about what I did when I was in Vietnam. It's a long country, but total area is probably smaller than here. Most of the time, you travel by car. So to cover a long stretch of distance, it's not easy. Many people that I grew up with will never have seen a white person in their life. When my husband and I visited the country after I left in 2016, we visited the country for the first time last year. They kept telling me, but they were gently honest. So if you happen to talk to any East Asian or Southeast Asian, have to keep in mind that if you want to be really accepting, that they are bluntness. They are partners. And I'm totally annoyed at students doing it, not anymore. I'm from, oh wow. I'm from here. The third one, oh yeah, I can use that. The third one from top, and it's a northern central area. And I go to the university in the middle one. That's the capital city. Back in 2016, I decided to choose the University of Hanoi because I heard it has a lot of trees. That's it. There was no justification. I always do that. I pick what I want, I follow it. I picked that university because it has this major called international studies. That sounds great. I picked that. Went to it, has a lot of trees, I like that. But I ended up learning about everything and didn't remember anything at all. So that's the problem. Everything relates. So after college, I traveled around a little bit and ended up working as a restaurant manager in also the city capital city. Lots of late night working, no tipping. Like that's something that I'm still trying to get used to or trying to not get used to in the US. In Asian culture, not just that. I also started to, but over time, it occurred to me that I want to experience more, not just travel. I want to experience life, staying in an area and work, bringing something meaningful. So I thought joining the nonprofit sector is good. I went to work on nonprofit in the northern Georgia, northern Vietnam, top part, and eventually the middle, and the one down right at the bottom. And basically, I just wanted to fund my life experience for things like this. Get to work with people, seeing community meetings where you see people who bring their work, they're trying to make hats here right in the meeting, or they can play cards. Something like this, we went to people's houses to interview. Back then I wear blue glasses. You could see all kinds of emotions. And I like that better than just sitting in the office. Of course, I can stand in the office as well. This is some women bartering in the Mekong Delta, Vietnam. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. I'm still very nervous. You keep me on the stage maybe 2 hours while I get used to it.
Any questions? One question? No questions. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to all the young members who presented. They were really great presentations. See you all at summer seminar.